Welcome to the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast, offering tips, insights, and advice from the best in the publishing industry.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of All Things Book Marketing. I'm your host, Olivia McCoy, and today our president, Marissa Eigenbrood, and I are going to discuss our recent trip to the U.S. Book Show. And that was actually yesterday, so very recent, although this will be coming out on Tuesday following. So thank you, Marissa, for joining us. I know between the two of us, we went to pretty much every session, I think.
We did. It was a jam-packed day. Thanks so much for getting this little conversation recap together, Liv. I'm excited to talk about a really exciting, fantastic event. I think we felt the bit of a missing the void in the publishing industry events without the book expo of days gone by. And I know that Publishers Weekly and was it AALA, I think American Association of Literary Agents.
Yep.
They were, the coordinators of the event, and they really. It certainly wasn't the first one in person. They actually did it digitally a few years ago, as well as the first one in person last year. But there was a new energy to this one this year. Yeah, and
I think I saw it was sold out online too.
It was sold out, and I heard from someone that they had originally planned to sell about 500 tickets to the event, and they had such a big demand. It went upwards to 900 tickets that were sold. So right toward the end, the event was hosted at the NYU Kimmel Center, and they were moving things around within the last couple of days just to expand the space so that they could bring in as many people as possible. One thing that I thought was really interesting, and it was because as we're sharing all of our takeaways here, was something that I heard toward the end of the event, which I was like, wow, if I had this framing, I would love to have it from the very beginning, because I was kind of, I had some questions around some of the panels and such, but I talked to Kevin, the CEO of PW, and he shared that their vision for the event was that it was to really bring in the editors, in particular from the major publishing houses, for this really great professional development event. And I love that they had this really focused energy around it initially, because the editors and the literary agents, again, that co-coordinator they work so much hand in hand in those early stages of everything. And so with that in mind, and reflecting as we went into all of those panels, I think it made so much sense. And from the publicity perspective, and especially the outside publicity perspective as the independent, agency, we got to really, at least for me, I got to learn about some of the ins and outs and terms and things of areas that 15 years in, I actually didn't know about in the world of it.
Same. I was talking to Corinne and some of our other people that came to the book show with us, and I was saying this was my first event that was focused on traditional publishing. So all my experience is indie publishing. I love, breathe indie publishing, and I have worked with traditionally published authors and a couple of editors and people from traditional houses, but I've never actually gotten a peek behind the scenes at the inner workings of traditional publishing, and that was fascinating. I know we were all trying to figure out who's going to go where, and I ended up going to one about auctions, which was something that I knew happened, but I didn't know anything. And I sat next to someone at Penguin Random House, and I had to have her translate for me. What does this mean? What's the difference here? Was round robin versus best bid versus preempt? And I was like, this is fascinating, and I'm super excited about the inner workings and just the conversation that was happening between agent and editor. But I was like, I'm gonna need some translation here.
Yeah, that was on the car ride home with Corinne and Kelly. Corinne shared the same energy that you did, Olivia, in that particular session. And I was learning all the terms. She did a beautiful job of getting the Cliff's Notes, of it together. And really, really interesting to just hear. I also attended the Great Expectations panel that was there. Gosh, I think there were 6 or 7 individuals up there, as well as the moderator. And it was an even split between literary agents and editors from different houses. And there was an editor from Disney Publishing there, which brought really unique perspectives around, as an agent coming in with a project, how you should be thinking about not just if it's a good fit for Disney as, for them to publish a book, But they're also thinking Disney has all of their kind of film and TV options, and it's everything from Disney and Disney Plus content to Hulu, Nat Geo, Onyx Network. There's like a bunch of them. And so they loved when someone would bring a project forward and talk about the other opportunities they saw for this to have potential well beyond a book too. And so there was Disney, there's HarperCollins Children's, Dutton in the mix, and a number of agents. And I think we know so much in our world in speaking to media around the relationship of it all and why we need to be, we need to give each other grace in what our inboxes look like, in our response time to things at times. Although as publicists, it's our job to respond very quickly, so not lose opportunities. But sometimes our editors on the other side for an article or something, they have a lot of content, a lot of submissions to review, and we want that fast response for our client. And it was really interesting to see the parallels in our experience as publicists too. The agent, sending in a submission to an editor and they need an answer for their client, and having that relationship, but also knowing kind of the time and place to utilize that relationship or to push that relationship. And so, yeah, just kind of seeing that, interworking that relationship, and then to also hear after that the conversation around the auctions and to know what's going into all of that related to the relationship of that feels a lot more stressful than the media relationship that we have. And I think there's very quick, quote unquote, like blacklisting if you don't do the right thing as an agent with an editor, in terms of your initial bids, in terms of your initial offers, or at least from the editor's side too. Yeah, there's very quick bad blood that can be created if you're not giving your best offers, and or kind of the part of that negotiation of it all. So it was really, it made our job feel a little less stressful.
On the flip side of that, I was also hearing from the auction, again, that was just such a great session, about the positive relationships and how a lot of editors and agents will actually text each other. The editor will text the agent while they're reading the manuscript and be like, I love this part, I'm so excited about this, to show how interested they are in the project. And so when they do click, it is an incredibly close relationship. And there was lots of talk of them having these long working relationships where they were taking each other out to lunch to discuss potential projects and being able to call each other and connect on an individual basis frequently about projects to see if they're a good fit. And so it's wild how strong those relationships are. And then on the email front, you reminded me of a comment that was said in the Young Publishing Forum. They were saying, they were saying that you can actually sit in front of your email and over the course of 10 minutes, watch 50 emails come through. And it's always a guessing game. Which door are you going to open? And any email that you open could be your whole rabbit hole for the rest of the week. And so then asking for grace with their emails, which we certainly understand. But then on top of that, I saw that even though publishing and the world in general moved so forward with technology post-COVID, there was also a return to simpler forms of communication. I know we have little QR codes for our LinkedIn, and people were still asking for handed out business cards.
For business cards, yeah.
Every session, I heard someone mention, just call me. I would rather you just call me. I will give you my number if you just want to call me instead of emailing me. And so it's interesting to see how even as we're progressing with AI, and I listened to the Spotify session about how audiobooks are booming and doing so well technologically and in the industry, there also is this return to a simpler form of communication, which is really nice to see.
It is. It's so nice. And that even just speaks to the energy of the event as a whole and the in-person part of all of that, because, I've been in New York about every 2 weeks recently. I hadn't been for a long time, but for some reason this, first part of this year is really bringing me into the city a lot, which I'm just loving. And I actually did a LinkedIn post yesterday on Wednesday, the day of the show, about being in New York and the other trips recently, and it was kind of perfectly timed to be in New York again for the book show. But it has just been so wonderful to be in person with people. And yesterday we got to see some amazing industry friends. I saw Juliana Carinante, who I've worked with so many times. She's with Quarto Books now. Then we saw Nancy Sheed, who we've worked with so many times. We saw I actually love to see so many hybrid publishers who are present there, the Amplify team, the Forefront team. We had our ghostwriting friends with Kevin Anderson Associates. And I mean, just so many that are Bowker friends, like, and I love just sharing that. It's a vast, group of friends within the industry, but it was so wonderful. And we met new people, of course, too. We got to shout out to Mia.
I know. I was like, I
our
met one of
wonderful friends.
my new bookish best friend, Mia from Penguin Random House. She was the one translating for me in the auction talk.
Yes.
We ended up getting lunch together and having a really good chat about the difference in indie publishing and traditional publishing and what she's learning from her role. She's in a rotational program. It was just like incredibly interesting, but we met so many people. Talked to someone who's working on a whole guide. He works for TikTok. And he's working on a whole guide for how independent and new authors can use TikTok successfully to promote their books. And he was like, would you be interested?
Wow.
And I was like, yes, please send that to us. We will.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't just editors and agents. I mean, it was everyone in the industry. It was a little bit of everything. There was a Jane
really was
sighting. Didn't get a chance to grab her before she snuck out, but we got to see her, which felt a little bit like seeing a celebrity for me.
It always is, right? Jane is so great. Liv, I'd love to hear a little bit more. I know you had a chance to attend the Young Professionals panel, and then even fast forward to the end of the day, there was a fantastic keynote. That was the Rich AF TikToker, influencer, and all. Vivian too, and she just has a fabulous book that came out with Portfolio, I believe, which really spoke to maximizing your salary in the and how you're thinking about your financial investments, your portfolio, your salary, everything within the publishing world. So I really loved how they kind of wrapped up the day with that focus, and again, kind of feeding back into a lot of Simon and Schuster and I believe it was Penguin Random House both invested in a lot of tickets for that to bring in a lot of their younger professionals within organizations to attend. So that was really great and super aligned with who all was there. And I keep bringing up the program from the day to remind myself of names.
I have all of my notes.
Here, but yeah. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on the overall landscape and kind of where things are right now with young professionals in the space. It does feel a little bit, it came up actually in the X Factor panel that I was in too, which was a number of really impressive leaders. But then there was a literary agency co-founder of Abatis, which I mean, really huge name, and some other publishers from major imprints and such who were asked similar questions. So it came up a lot throughout the day. I'm curious to hear your takeaways there.
That was probably my favorite session of the whole day, was the Young Publishing Forum. And it was these incredible people from the Young Publishers Association, Triangle House, Lotus, Planeta USA, and Simon & Schuster who came. And it was a 30-minute Q&A. Mm-hmm. So we just asked questions. And the first question was, what does it mean to be a young publisher? How young is young? And they immediately corrected and said, what we mean by that is emerging. We mean anyone new to the industry, anyone learning the industry for the first time. So it's not about age. It's all about how you are getting into the industry and getting your foot in the door. And so that really opened the door for a lot of people to talk about it. And my biggest takeaway was that time is different in publishing than it is in other industries. 1 year is not 1 year in normal industry time. 5 publishing years is about equal to 1 regular year in any other job. And that's because of how long it takes to get a book from beginning to end all the way through. I mean, anywhere from a minimum 2 years, but it could take much, much longer than that, depending on the editing process, any production delays, plans you have for the future, things happening in the world. And so you need time to figure out, where do I belong in this space? Am I enjoying this? Is this what I want to be doing? Am I with the right people, doing the right thing? And also for the industry to really get their hooks into you and figure out, are you a good fit for this? Where are your strengths? Where can we help train you up? But ultimately, the big takeaway was publishing is societal. It's not just a job. People working publishing don't just do it to clock in, clock out, and go home. It's their life. The people that work in publishing and stay in publishing live and breathe publishing. They need to work in the field. It's like this inherent nature in them. And I completely understand that. That's always been my path from 6 years old all the way till now. So that was huge. And we talked a lot about mentorship and the importance of building communities and recognizing those emerging publishing professionals and making sure that they feel like they do belong and there is a space. It's not just an isolating industry for the authors who are at home working behind their computers on their keyboard or their notepad or whatever
Sure.
it may be. Also, as we are being more remote, as we are able to work from across the country, it can feel a lot like you're in your email inbox all day. But it is a very
Mm-hmm.
extroverted field. You're constantly talking
Mm-hmm.
to people, you're constantly meeting people, you're always reading something, doing something, and then going to share that with someone.
Right.
So it's very, very social. And
Yeah.
that was another big thing was, it's hard as an introvert to be in publishing because of how much community is needed.
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of a combination of like the extroverted introvert or the introverted extrovert that kind of lives in publishing as a whole. I don't know if like jumps right over to needing to be an extrovert all the time, but I think just there's a even as an author, there's a requirement to even if you want to be hiding off in your your little cave writing your books over here all the time, you have to be out there and have a platform to a degree, whatever that looks like. So there needs to be a bit of a combination of the two. But I love what you said about kind of the living and breathing publishing. And during the X Factor panel, Dawn Davis, who is publisher at 37 Inc., she had said that, I mean, she was in traditional publishing for many, many years. She moved over to magazine editing and publishing for a few years, and it's an amazing opportunity came upon her. And she said, all of a sudden I have my weekends back. She said, I don't know what to do on a Saturday now because I'm not reading through a manuscript. I'm not kind of, texting with a literary agent friend of mine. And, but she said kind of, again, the living and breathing of it all. She said, I did it for a few years and she's like, I had to come back. I didn't care if that meant I didn't have my full Saturday anymore. I had to be back in that world again. And so it is so much that even like for myself, I have always loved reading. But when I was kind of looking for the right place for myself in the PR world as a whole, publishing wasn't even a thought. It wasn't even an option I knew was available truly to me. And so when I happened to stumble upon this little book publicity agency, in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, I was like, what the heck is book publicity? But yeah, let's give it a spin. And I can't imagine being anywhere else at all. I mean, to not be a part of this amazing world that we're in. And I think that the beauty of it all is that you get to share art in all of its forms. You get to be a part of something that no matter what the genre is, that someone has truly put their a lot of their personal time into, their soul, their heart, their ideas, their intellectual property, however we want to view it. And you get to be a part of that, and you get to be an advocate for that work, and a cheerleader for the work, and for that person. And so it is a very special gift that is bestowed upon all of us on a regular basis. And so yeah, if that sometimes means that at least in our world, I got this proposal on a Saturday morning while my kid's taking a nap or something just to get it out because I really want to be a part of this thing. That's okay, sometimes. Yeah. And we got to do those things at times because it's just this world is feeding our souls, as well on the outside. But I love what you said about, the dog years, if you will, of publishing, because I think from our world, and I think in the independent publishing world, in the hybrid publishing world, that for so long we've been so heavily involved with, and of course, again, we work with traditional published authors as well, but it's been a newer space that we keep growing into over the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years. As I reflect into that other world that we've just known so well, you get a chance to be more nimble in this space. You get a chance to see many different pieces of the process of the book coming to life, or just see it being done a little differently. And so I think it is really interesting to think about like someone who thinks, I think I want to be an editor, and you start off with that, that first job as an assistant editor or whatever it is, as you make your way into the whole publishing world. But you're not sure if you wanted to be on the marketing team, or you're not sure if you want to be in sales or such. But like you said, you really can't necessarily get the full grasp of that particular position until you've been kind of sitting in that for a little bit longer. And so I think that as I look at the LinkedIn profiles of individuals who have really grown over time, like you'll see that someone is sitting in maybe a department for a long time, but then they transition over and they're kind of sitting there for a little while in traditional publishing, where in the world outside of that, especially if you're in like an independent press, you have to wear a lot of hats. And like with us, a lot of us wear a lot of hats. So you get to experience it a little more and maybe pivot into other areas a little bit faster when you're outside of that, the big five world, especially.
And I've said it before on the podcast, but I didn't start out in marketing and book promotion. I came into publishing fully intending to be an editor. I was like set on it. I'm going to be an editor. I'm going to be editing all the manuscripts all the time. And I had an editorial internship. I had a writing internship, everything.
Yeah.
And I fell into publicity and marketing and then found my niche and have spent every single day being so grateful that I did. I can't imagine doing anything else except marketing. But really what it came down to was from the forum was the people that succeed in publishing, the people that stay with it and fall in love with it. You and I are past our 5-year marks. The publishing has spoken in us. We're not going anywhere.
Oh yeah.
Those are
it's in the DNA.
Yeah. The people that make it in publishing and last in publishing are the people that come in with a different mindset. It's not what can publishing do for me? What can this career in publishing do for me? It's what can I do for this career in publishing? How can I change it just a little bit? How can I make a difference? How can I work on the books that's going to be someone's new favorite read of all time? And that is such a beautiful moment when you find that, when you have that experience. And it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does happen, you just glow. And then bringing books into it, the Securing Your Financial Future on Any Budget, that was the last little keynote you mentioned, Vivian too. And I was interested in this one because it was talking about, no one comes into publishing for the salary. They come into it for
certainly not.
Salary is not the big draw of our industry. And so really how to make the most of what you are getting paid and make sure that you are set for the future and it's sustainable. And I think more talks like this are ultimately going to make the industry more accessible, because a lot of the reason why there isn't more diversity in publishing is because that first internship, that first job doesn't always pay your bills. I mean, I did a couple unpaid.
If it pays at all. Yes.
Right. Well, I was going to say, mine did. There was a whole talk where someone said, I got paid 14 hours a day for $14 an hour for my internship. And someone else said, I only got paid $10 a day. And other people were like, you got paid at all? And it was a whole conversation about how to afford to work in publishing, you kind of have to have a little bit of a safety net already in place. And so more talks about how to make the most of budget and teaching financial safety really, I think, is going to help open the doors for other young professionals, emerging professionals looking to enter the space and who really belong here and want to be here and should have every right to. And so we talked a lot about investing, a lot of great tips. She was hilarious. And actually what I learned most from it, because I found I was already doing a lot of the stuff she recommended, which thank goodness.
Yay, go live.
My stepdad, who worked in finance his whole life, has been a huge help in that. But I was struck by, this is exactly what we want for our authors. They were handing out books. I got to go home with a free copy of her hardcover book. And I was like, this is going to I'm going to refer to it more often because it's right here. And she got a chance to talk to all these people. And no, her book isn't specifically for publishing professionals. What a great niche they found. What a great angle for her expertise in this small space. And that's exactly what we do in our job at Smith Publicity, is find that find that target audience, find that angle, and then when it fits. And this was exactly what we want to see for our authors. And so that was really fun to be on the other side of it. Like, oh, I'm actually in the audience right now. I'm the key target audience, which doesn't always happen. And to see it work well and be successful I was really excited for Vivian and for her whole team that put together this opportunity for her.
Yeah, you saw the riches and niches in real life.
I did. The riches and niches. Yes, I did. And then she
so great.
helps us grow those riches as well.
Yes.
I have a whole little notes that I have to go talk to my stepdad about now from her talk. But I am really excited.
Fantastic. Hey, I'm sure I even have more to learn as well. I know we had a couple extra copies. We wanted to have them in the office here too, just to have for anyone who wasn't able to go to can take it home with them for a little while. And one other area that I think I would love to chat about too is I heard it referred to as the elephant in the room in many instances, or the cicada in the room, it was called during the CEO roundtable that kicked off the day, and that is AI in our publishing world. And I actually really, really loved, I think it was Aman of Ingram, I believe it was. I have my little booklet here. Baker and Taylor, Aman Kushar from the CEO of Baker and Taylor, and he really he loved the idea of looking at AI flipping the letters and calling it an intelligent assistant instead. And because the one thing, and this kind of came up in a recent author call that I had to a super impressive individual who's a keynote speaker and all, and he had brought up these like five employable skills of the future that AI will never be able to kind of replicate. It had a lot to do with creativity and intuition and empathy and such. But the one thing that Aman shared was that there's you can't AI can't look forward. It can only look back. It can get incredibly smart as it continues to pull in more and more information from the past, and it can make its own predictions for the future. But that's not going to ever come with the human characteristics of looking forward with creativity, with empathy, with intuition, and other amazing traits that humans hopefully will always only have as we look ahead. But again, this was in a much larger conversation because there has been AI has been so consistently brought up within the publishing industry around just a big data breach of content that was leaked last year, and that ended up going kind of into a lot of the AI machines, if you will, of just books content that was fully available out there. There was a lot of discussion around how AI is being incorporated into contracts because we want to start talking about how authors are using AI. I thought it was so interesting to hear that it's actually it's not about whether you're using ChatGPT to build out a whole paragraph or a whole chapter in your book. Some publishers are starting to add language in that says, if you're writing in Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever you're using, and it recommends that you finish the sentence with, I went to the park and wanted to, and then it says, ride the swings, and you press yes.
Predictive language, yeah.
The predictive language is what they also want you as an author to be reporting that you're using as well. And I'm like, this is just wild how detailed it is getting. But there is, the big five are really starting to incorporate language into their author contracts around the use of AI for developing their content, developing their books and such. So it was just so interesting to hear how it wasn't doomsday by any means in the CEO roundtable. It was like, I loved, again, Aman's perspective of it can be your intelligent assistant for things. It can help you be more efficient, get things done faster, give you time to work on the bigger things, give you that time back because it can help you with some of these more basic things. So it was that, that big perspective there, but that, we're cautious. We're cautious, and we're setting our boundaries around AI as well. We're setting our healthy boundaries as much as we can. And it's such a changing and evolving entity that it's really hard to keep up with it. Like I for the big five legal teams to be figuring out this language, I can't even begin to imagine the trickle down effect within, all of our members of IBPA, our hybrid publishers, how they're talking about it, especially with hybrid and how it feeds into intellectual property and the control that authors often have over their content there too. And we're even seeing it in the publicity space of reporters, media contacts we had a client recently who was responding to an expert commentary request, and they sent back, quick response, and the reporter put it in to an AI tester and a checker, and it lit up like a Christmas tree that the client had used AI to put together. And they might have put their fantastic ideas and they just wanted help in summing it up in a better way or just a different way. And so it wasn't that they did a bad thing necessarily, but it's just really interesting to see how even media is cracking down on how AI is being used on that side too. So just, again, so many facets of it.
What baffles me is that when we talk about AI in publishing, we're usually talking about the predictive writing, the text, the writing, the editing, everything that ChatGPT and other examples and iterations of it do. And I do have I get the whole cicada comment because it is loud and it is kind of annoying. I love it as a tool. I love it as formatting, looking over things, giving you ideas, inspiration. But I did just look through our scholarship submissions, and exactly half of them were ineligible because of their use of AI. And I was allowing up to 20% AI. If it came back
Wow.
20% AI, I was like, you know what? That's getting help writing the intro outro paragraph. That's fine. I'm okay with it, as long as the bulk of it is them and their ideas and their thoughts. But still, half of them disqualified. But AI is more than that. It's more than just writing, and it's been around for decades. It's been around for a really long time, and we see it in algorithms. We see it in recommendations you get on social media. We see it in recommendations you get on Amazon and retail sites. I was in the Overdrive talking about harnessing trusted influencers, which was not about social media, believe it or not. It was about using relationships within libraries, schools, universities, government agencies as influencers.
Oh, yay.
And all of these digital tools now to reach these long established institutions within around for hundreds of years. And they were showing me how algorithm was recommending librarians bring in certain books, recommending which textbooks should be used for students at school, recommending books for our soldiers that need a little bit of support. And then I also joined the Spotify talk. We had Spotify as a sponsor who came to talk about audiobooks on Spotify, and they were also showing us how promotion, AI and algorithm are being used to promote books. And I'm not a huge fan of using AI to write because I find it takes me more time to edit than it does to write, and that's just a personal thing of mine. But I am obsessed with what AI and algorithms can do for promotion. I'm so excited to see that emerging technology all the time. I'm so excited whenever I see a recommendation that is a match for me, and not just, oh, we heard you say this one word once, so we're going to recommend this for the rest of your life. You know, I talk about, oh, Rudy needs a new dog food, and then I get dog food for 10,000 days after that. This is because you listened to this podcast and you've been a regular listener of this podcast. We're recommending these specific books by not only guests that were on the podcast, but also what people, other listeners are reading. So it was a very curated list, and that's just going to be a boom for authors, especially indie authors who are trying to break through the noise. Is all of these it's gonna help us find your niche.
It really is. It really is. It did sound like that was a bit of a trending discussion overall. Was I think this came up in the sales panel in particular, was that, you know, before the bookstores, retail channels, they lived for what the publishers were going to be sending to them, and you know, and now it's the other way around a bit, and the publishers are, you know, you would send your whole catalog to Barnes and Noble, that Barnes and Noble would look at the whole catalog and they'd buy a good bit of everything in there. And now you're thinking about, well, this book is probably going to get maybe a Barnes and Noble buy, but this one over here, we're going to try to push more to Target. And this one over here, we're going to push to bookshop.org more. And it's a different kind of, again, fragmented and like niching strategy for each title and where the best fit is for them. So I kind of love that. I want to, it doesn't make it easier on the sales and distribution teams. I get it. But I do love that. I think there was either a podcast or a conversation I had, it may have been us together, or one of my LinkedIn posts that I was putting together, that I said something, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, about like a prediction of like future in where publishing is going to go and where publicity continues to go. And I said, it's going to continue niching down. I can't imagine that it's not going to keep going in that direction, because there's too much out there, too much noise to break through. And so you have to reach where you're going to see impact, where people are obviously already drinking the Kool-Aid with you a little bit, you know, where people are already interested in the subject matter that you're focusing on, and how you can create that engagement there. And so I think it's interesting to see that and hear that from that sales distribution perspective too. I think it's only going to continue going in those directions. And I love that you brought up that they were talking about librarians at the influencers panel. I think it's so interesting. And
school librarians, educators, universities, corporate learning centers, government agencies. We talked about the top 10 digital book buyers in the U.S. and K through 12 schools who are using digital content. Apparently, the Department of Defense is the top U.S. buyer of ebooks, digital books.
Wow! Oh my gosh! I know we work so closely with Perry Hooks, and Perry who does, a lot of those book buys for speaking opportunity coordination. And so she works a lot with government agencies, and there is a lot of kind of call for speaking, kind of workshops that come with they really want the book. They want someone to walk away with something really tangible from those experiences. And so it's interesting to hear that as a focus. But I will say, I think there was the trend throughout the entire day of, at all costs, protect, save, just wrap up in your arms our librarians.
Support for our libraries. They're not going anywhere.
Yes.
They're always under attack. I feel like that's not going to go away, but I don't think the support is waning in the slightest. And
certainly not from the publishing world.
They're definitely not in the publishing world, and definitely not by book lovers everywhere. And those libraries, they're also using a lot of new technology and algorithms. They're not modes of institution. They're helping students with their research, but they're also using social media book talks and virtual book clubs, and they have their own algorithmic thing. I use Libby, which is ebook and audiobook through library. So I have a digital library card so I can download audiobooks from my local library to listen to on my commute.
So cool.
We're in the future. We're living in the future.
Yes. We are in the publishing future, and I can't wait to see where it's going to continue going. And but yes, I think our librarians are so special, and they're such a big part of the control of content, the banning of books conversation. They are certainly always at the front line of that conversation, and however we can continue supporting them and everybody. I say us, like everybody, not just Smith, but everybody across the board. We need to protect them, and we need to make sure people have access to all information, all voices. And
on that note, I'm going to include links in this episode description for you to learn more about book bans and supporting our library.
Please.
These are resources that we've shared before in the past, so I'm just going to reshare them here, use this opportunity, because I love that, and I 100% agree. And I know we're running out of time. You have a client call coming up that you are excited about.
Yeah,
so
I am.
End this with our number one takeaway from the day.
Oh my goodness. One thing that I actually love, this is, I think, me as in my leadership position here at Smith, is when I was in the X Factor panel, they were talking a lot about what your like soft skill has been as a leader growing. And somebody turned it on its head and said it's your super skill. And I love that. Like, I love that mindset. I love that like perspective around it. And so, again, so many great things, but I love thinking about how, that's those things are so treasured and so important in how who we all are, how we grow in the public, our industries, our careers, whatever it is like really truly holding on to your super skills, which can be sometimes those softer skills that people refer to. But they're the most powerful ones that create those connections and those personal interactions. And I know, and I'm going to shout this out for PW and talking to Kevin, they are so excited to expand this for next year. They're so excited to bring on more sponsors and individuals who are going to help them with this. They want to make it not just for the editor and the literary agent connection there that was involved, but to create other paths as well, to expand into, beyond traditional publishing, beyond the big five. They want, I don't know if it'll ever be at the Javits Center in the size that it was before. Never know. Never say never. I'd love to see it, but they are really eager to keep this going and keep seeing it grow. And we're so excited to see the response from this year. So anyone listening who has ideas to share with PW and Kevin and the rest of them there, or if you want to be a part of it in the future, they are certainly really eager to hear from everyone about their experiences and how they can do better and bigger.
I already talked to my contact at PW, Christy, about doing a podcast interview next year for 2025 PW, so it's already on my calendar.
Yay! Fantastic. What was your main takeaway, Liv?
I think there's just an overall feeling of support and love, not just for books, not just for the industry, but also for the authors. I kept hearing over in every conversation how protective each person throughout the process is of the author. They want the best for them. The agents want the best deal. They want the best fit for them. The editor wants the best for their content and ideas and to share it with the most people possible and to really bring out the best of them. and then we get to promotion. And of course, we know how protective we are of our authors, making sure they find the right space and are represented respectfully and well to their target audience, their right niches. And overall, it wasn't just, yes, books. We care about books. We love reading. It was, we love the people who are creating them, and we support them and acknowledge them and all of their work that they do, and we'll continue to protect all of our work as well. And that was a little bit of a faith in humanity is restored moment for me.
Warm and fuzzies.
I walked away feeling inspired all over again and very, very in love with my industry.
Oh, yay. It was amazing. Can't wait for next year. We'll do this again.
Yes. All right. And listeners, watchers, if you like this episode, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with anyone else that might be interested. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast. To reach us and learn about our many services, visit smithpublicity.com or send us an email to info@smithpublicity.com.